Sorry so much. Kulisema kamata. Kisoma kulisema nyinshi.
Omuli amazzi amalusenge engeri gye gaŋŋendamu wano. Mwana ekizigo kino bali kiraba. You're welcome on Black Hot Fire Network. It's me, INNOSSETU, and my Africa Maria. It is a Thursday, and it is a cool Thursday, though we've had some rains since morning. Yeah, but it is a cool Thursday, and everyone is doing good. For those that are watching us from different countries all over the world. Yeah. For those that are getting us on Facebook, and that is Black Hot Fire Network radio station. And of course YouTube, Black Hot Fire Network. Black Hot Fire Network.
Yeah.
And Twitter, it is Black Hot Fire Network.
One.
Yeah.
Black Hot Fire 1.
Yeah. Thank you for watching us and supporting us every day. Today being a Thursday, we are going to discuss about decolonization for Africa, or the need for decolonization of Africa. Very many people will ask you, are we still colonized?
Yeah, we are.
So very many people will be like, hey, why do you bring such a topic now? Are we colonized? Yes, we are, because we are seeing a lot in Africa that shows that we are still colonized by the white people, by the Bazungus. They are in too much into African affairs, almost everything in Africa. So we need to wake up as Africans, because, like I said, if you look at our political structure, we have in very many of African countries, we see very many African countries, they use that setting of the whites. That shows we are still, fine. We got independences. We got independence. We got independences sometime back in Africa, but they were majorly fake political independences. For fake political independences.
Yep.
Yeah, in African countries. So Besides even the fake political independence they gave us,
What I shit.
we we still see whites or bazungus in very many aspects of African
Business.
yeah,
One grand
yeah,
slam.
of African affairs, economically, culturally,
Socially,
socially. One
politically.
person will ask you if we start with the political view of or the political aspect of how these people are into our affairs politically. Like we see, yeah, starting with army weapons we are using in Africa. The weapons we use in Africa, they are not made from Africa. The weapons,
Mhm.
the army weapons. Besides that, even the presidents, most of the presidents we have in Africa, they are dictated by these people. They
Mm.
are put into power. They are supported by the same people. If we look at the rebel groups you have, that is political. If
Mm.
you look at the rebel groups you have in Africa, they are supported by the same people.
Mm.
Okay, again.
Mm.
So we need that decolonization. We need to do away with these people. Okitegeera?
Mm.
Ogerako
So many around that way.
tuli aliko ki
So you are in that way.
one.
Mm.
Mhm.
Open the fun background.
Go.
One.
One.
Mm.
Hmm?
One.
Kamwenizi
Mm.
manyiga
So,
atajja kugoba.
Forever cool. Decolonization of Africa, of course, is a process that largely took place from the mid 1950s to 1975 during the Cold War, with radical government changes on the continent as colonial governments made the transition to independence and, of course, gained independent state. The process was often marred with violence, political turmoils, widespread unrest, and organized revolts in both North and the Sub-Saharan countries, including the Mau Mau Rebellion, which was, of course, known, of course, that took place in Kenya. That's Mzungu Aende Ulaya, Mwafrikana Apate Uhuru, and the Algeria War in French Algeria, the Congo crisis in the Belgium Congo, the Angola War of Independence in Portuguese Angola, the Zanzibar Revolution in the Sultan of Zanzibar, and Nigerian Civil War in the sensationist state of Biafra. Now, we saw all these during the days of decolonization at the beginning, of course. And as we had all these rebellions, like they used to call them, we saw Africans gaining what they call their independence at that time. I've taken that water and I feel so cold. So hold up a little.
So you talked about the Kong crisis, the Belgian Kong, the Angolan War of Independence in Portuguese Angola. These people, they organized these independences.
Mm.
They knew that they have exploited Africa for so long, and what Africans are yearning for, what Africans are thirsty of, it is the independence, that political independence that have been into Africa. But very many Africans ignored the
You know, we started about Mama.
yeah,
Mama Rebellion.
even had it in nationalism in Eden.
Mm.
Whether to give you a sad note about this, when I was still in Ode, I wanted to be a doctor. To be honest,
Mm.
how how did I divert it from this? How did I come to do history in A level? Um, like when we sat for exams, when we sat for exams, I was like, because after doing exams, when the results came back, I had I had in biology. I remember I had credit 4 in biology. Physics, I had credit 6. Chemistry, I had credit 6. Mathematics, I had distinction 2. Yeah, yeah. So I was like, I can't do history when I'm having a grade 6. Ochitegeera? I said it doesn't make any sense. Kitegeeza by'enkola sikola kibitegeera, but I wanted to be same biology, chemistry, and math. So I said I can't do any science subject. Sisobola kukola, I can't do like any. Munayen.
Like why?
Like alaliko kamera ebbina lirigwe. Kyekyo kaze emabega. Like I said, I can't do like any subject.
Lwaki tombise?
I can't do any. Ngamenguleke.
Wandibise nga tosoose complain.
Like I'm telling you, so I went in for history because of history. I had distinction too. Geography, the same thing. Hey, ate kugambye tujja kazema bwe kala. Eh? Nje ending.
Tutandike endagide.
Lireke. Terigayise nnyo nengalirabise. So that's why I crossed and went to arts. Ntunula gye ntunudde. Tebibadde byamaanyi naawe. Tebibadde so mbadde nkyagamba that is how mwana gwe crossed to arts, but I want to do sciences because of course my bro did sciences. I also wanted to do science, and that motherfucker believed that I can't do sciences, but I wanted to surprise him.
He should have.
Nensalawo nengamba, let me do arts, full arts, history, economics, geography. Ate wano nali ninawo distinction too. No, distinction too. Kyokka no, the reason why I did that, just because I wanted a government sponsorship. But to make matters worse, I did not even sign the job forms.
You had the man.
I remember where it was 70K. But my mom was so harsh on me. Why don't you go back and sign the job forms? Why don't you go and write the job forms? I did it, man. I ate it.
Like me, growing up was active. Okay, it was around the Vasinango Kumanda South. People, but until the side, talking about until that trauma. Very emotional, so that I can. And by never on him, and that's why basically I did. I tell and I said, I'm going to, but studying law was very expensive. So I couldn't. That's so again because I didn't pay me time.
Lord.
And I did for a long time. Anyway, so during those days, when you remember when we studied about Mama Muzunga and Ulaya, Mafrika and Hulu and stuff like that. When Africans Well,
But there is
Africa.
something, before even you go deep into it, there is something I ask myself, why is it that where someone is ready to settle for academia, for African history, they just give brief history?
And the funny,
Moreover, if you did the history, nationalism, they
mm,
give a brief history about Mao.
because they don't know.
Just brief. Brief.
Because the
Mm,
schools don't teach about this thing.
mm,
And there is the funniest thing.
mm,
I don't know whether it is the same thing in the US,
mm,
but in UK you can study about Africa's history
mm, mm,
and you specialize.
mm,
There is that course where you specialize in Africa's history. And specializing in that course,
mm.
I also know they don't teach about the truth.
BI.
But you graduate as a scholar, umanikiddwa, ogenda mu embassies zaabwe,
Mm,
and stuff like that. So, like we said, a lot of African countries broke away from the colonial
mm,
masters.
mm,
The scramble for Africa between the 1870 and 1914 was a significant period of European imperialism in
mm,
Africa that ended with almost all of Africa and its natural resources being controlled as colonies by a small number of European states, racing to secure as much land as possible
mm,
while avoiding conflicts and amongst themselves.
mhm,
The partition of Africa was confirmed in the Belgium Agreement of course, 1885, with little regard to local differences. Almost all the pre-colonial states of Africa had lost their sovereignty, with the only exceptions being Liberia, which had been, of course, settled in the early 19th century by African American former slave, and Ethiopia, later occupied by Italy in 1963. Of course, Britain and France had the largest holdings, but Germany,
mm,
Spain, Italy, Belgium, and Portugal also had colonies. We know that the process of decolonization began as a direct consequence of World War II. By 1977, 50 African countries had gained independence from European colonial powers. But of course, what do you think at that time? Because before we dive in today, of course, we'll have a lot of hours to uh, on this show, so we're going to take step by step. What would you? What do you really think were like the causes of these rebellions or these wars that Africans, of course, plotted and set to fight against the colonial masters?
um, um, for me, I think the there were internal factors and external factors.
Mm,
And the external factors, those were factors that were outside Africa,
mm,
that Africans got ideas from outside Africa,
mm,
because during the world wars, the
mm,
first and the second world wars, African soldiers were conscripted into imperial militaries to go and fight on behalf of these people, on behalf of the colonial masters.
mm,
Because of the Britain, they could come, for example, in Uganda, because Uganda was a British protectorate. So
mm,
they come and pick Africans, they pick Ugandans from that country to go and fight on their behalf.
mm,
By the way, I had when maybe I was just ignorant. I won't say that I was young to know this.
mm.
For me, I thought if something is called a world war, you find people fighting in Uganda.
Me too. Me too. Me
So
too.
when we were studying about world war, I
Me
was like,
too.
I'm not seeing Uganda's involvement.
Me too. It's always like it must be wow.
Right,
I
eh,
expected to see
hmm,
it being wild, Nigerians fighting,
fighting each
Ugandans
other.
fighting, the whole world at war, because that's simple as that.
Mm.
Nonsense.
So that's also what I had. I thought world war, you find war everywhere. You go in town, you find you go. It is a world war. That's what I thought about world war. So when very many African soldiers were conscripted into imperial militaries to go and fight on behalf of these people, some African soldiers also volunteered. Some African soldiers, so veterans from actually over 1.3 million African troops participated in World War. We know that, and fought in both European and Asian uh, countries
Mm.
where the war was. So
Mm.
this led to deeper political awareness and expectations from greater respect and self-determination.
Mm.
Like people got determined by this wars. Africans.
Bw'omala ogenda bw'omala byagenda wali onyiga okuli entaano, onyiga okuli economic, social what? Obulaba anti tujja kwogera
Okay. So like Africans, I won't say from Eve we are stupid or we are ignorant. I won't say that. I won't say this. But these people, before the world wars, were in Africa. They were exploiting Africans. They were doing slave trade for over very many years in Africa. But Africans were not waking up to see this. Africans were not seeing that they were exploited. Africans served on behalf of these people. Very many African leaders, African chiefs were killing their fellow natives. Hmm? On behalf of these people, but they were not waking up to see this. In Africans, we are very many. These people were few.
Mm.
If you look at like for example in Uganda, if you look at like they used to call there is someone who was called Sir Cohen and even others. There were few that were in administration. The administration was fed up of like Africans, but Africans were not waking up for this to fight until Africans participated in World War II that was fought on behalf of, like they fought on behalf of their colonial masters. Now they build self determination. They get determined. I always ask myself, um, for us to wake up in Africa right about now, to wake up African presidents, to wake up now and see that we are exploited by most African dictators. They are the most puppets in Africa. So do we need to participate in world war now so that to wake up to see that the whites are involving into our politics, into our economy and our social lives? Do we need to participate in that, or we are just
First of all, I know people know,
mm,
but we have those other people
mm,
who hold the power.
mm,
Okay,
mm,
and we have seen a lot of people coming out, except that nowadays it's
mm,
Africa. And by the way, I believe back in the days, Africa was a little bit united than now,
mm,
because as the world is revolves, people become selfish. They only think about themselves, what they want. They don't think about others, like with what others want. So, um, as much as Africans were pushed to involve themselves in these world wars that actually had nothing to do with them. They were the ones who were used, by the way, at the time like shields. They are always at the front, at the battle front line, and they were obligated to support their colonial masters, like you say,
mm,
and
mm,
they still keep on doing this thing, by the way, except nowadays
mm,
people try not to be direct.
mm,
Like you saw that situation,
mm.
take your aspirin, Maria. Oh, Jibjaba. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for coming through. Hope you're doing good. Chippy chapa. Yeah, I have a little headache, but I'll be going. I'll be going. So, we see that there is still that force.
Mm,
If why are you with Russia? America asks. If you do treaties with China,
mm,
how about us? So, like, apparently, if China hates Russia, Ugandans should hate Russia because China is hating Russia.
mm,
Usually, like in the World War, we got involved in wars that were not meant for us. So, though the Africa achieved because some of its people who participated in World War are the ones who led these rebellions that led to the so-called independence, though we were not independent. So, but at least some people assume they were or they are
mm.
still independent. Yeah, we are fine so far, so well. Mm, that's good. That's good. That's good. Anyway, you remember during the 1941 Atlantic Conference, where the British and the US leaders met to discuss ideas for the post war world, one of the provisions added by President Roosevelt was that all people had the right to self determination,
Mm.
aspiring hope in the British colonies.
Colonies.
At that time, when they said everyone had the right to self determination,
Mm,
most people who were from this were
mm,
a lot of people who had experience in military techniques at that time.
mm,
I felt like, all right, if Roosevelt really believes that we all have a right,
mm,
then why? And then around on February that I think 12th, yeah, 12.
mm,
On February 12, 1941, the United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt and British Prime Minister the Winston Churchill met to discuss the post-war world. The result was the Atlantic Charter. It
mm,
was not a treaty and was not submitted to the British Parliament or the Senate of the United States for
mm,
transfication, but it turned out to be a widely acclaimed document. One of the clauses that was clause 3 referred to the right to decide what form of government people wanted and to the restoration of self government. Now, that's how, of
mm,
course, democracy started coming in the picture.
mm,
Prime Minister Churchill argued in the British Parliament that the document referred to the states and nations of Europe now under the Nazi yoke. President Roosevelt regarded it as applicable across the world. At that time, the prime minister was like, "No, this does not is not meant for other
Africa.
Africans. Definitely,
Yeah.
it is meant for Europe. So
Mm,
Africans do not have a right to
mm,
democracy.
mm,
They do not have a right
mm,
to self determination. They do not have a right to stand and have a restoration of self government. That's why Churchill was, of course, saying the document did not, the document only referred to the states and the nations of Europe.
mm,
But of course, Roosevelt, the president of the America at that time, said no, this should be a worldwide thing.
mm,
And of course, anti-colonial politicians immediately saw it as a revolt to colonial empires. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, 3 years after the end of World War II, recognized all people as being born free and equal.
mm,
Now, after World War II, the US and the African colonies put pressure on Britain
mm,
to abide by the terms of the Atlantic Charter
mm,
after the war.
mm,
Did Uganda participate in World War II? Was your oil stolen by the Axis power like Ethiopia?
Mhm.
Uganda participated in World War II,
Mm.
but I think the oil wasn't. They had not begun to mine
Mm.
oil
Mm.
yet.
Mm.
So at that time, the agreements these people were, the meeting they had, the conferences
Mm.
they had, Britain did not want Africa to involve in these
Mm.
conferences.
Mm.
They said that treaties, sorry, uh, kasomere kako
Mm.
kabana Uganda for the 77,000 Ugandan enlisted soldiers and for the civilians who contributed money and organization skills and followed the war news. The war was not desperate struggle for survival. Nsokodde bali muno tutwalimu.
Maldives.
Mm.
Their participation.
At that time, it was hard for people not to participate in such
But
kind.
why do what people participated? I know some people in the village, in the villages there. They
Mm,
say they participated. Most of them they came back and they gave them land.
mm,
They gave them land depending like following the kingdom things.
mm,
But it was their participation in World War. Even this man participated in World War II. The recent army man who died was
mm.
called Kasirye
I
Gwang.
see. It
That
was from your village.
oh,
Mm.
wasn't from my village. There are people from villages
Oba
there. They are
yashe.
taking alcohol, but they always talk about these stories, how they
Mm,
participated. They have a lot of land. They say they got it after they came back. They were rewarded by the kingdom.
mm.
And you know, convincing during those days, I think it was based
So nasoma kanzije.
on kingdom thing. So
Yes.
so after World War II, the US, I mean, before even that, you know, these people after signing the Atlantic Charter, you know, there is a way they most of them interpreted this thing, and of course, even Winston Churchill who was the Prime Minister of Britain by then, he was like, no, the Charter does not apply for Africans. It was all about the people of Europe that were under the Nazi yoke. So they always bring that kind of disunity, that kind of suppressing Africans. Why is it that that wasn't like applied or applicable in regard for Africa? So decolonization has a long way. So we shouldn't forget that after World War II, the US and the African colonies put pressure on Britain to abide by the terms of the Atlantic Charter after the war. Some Britons considered the African colonies to be childish and immature. You know, these people, there is a way um they gave excuses in Africa, like, you know, your country is immature. They found us independent. They found our land independent. They found our political life, our political situation, our political affairs independent. They found our social life, our economy is independent. Now, at the time of demanding for independence, they say like yeah, African colonies are still childish and immature. No matter why we see very many, some of these people still in Africa, that is the mindset they have in their minds. That is what they have in their brains. That Africa, and the whole Africa is childish and immature to be given to get social independence, to be economically stable, economically African stated, to be politically African stated. They think we are childish and immature. So British colonizers introduced a democratic government at local levels in their colonies. By then, because Britain was forced to agree, but Church A rejected that the universal applicability of self-determination of the subject nations. Ekitegeera? So, Italy, a colonial power, lost its African empire, Italian East Africa, Italian Ethiopia, Italian Eritrea, Italian Somalia, and Italian Libya. All those countries were under Italian rule or Italian influence by then. So, as a result of World War II, furthermore colonies such as Nigeria, Senegal, Ghana pushed for self governance as colonial power were exalted by the war efforts. So after the war, people were like, we are tired of this shit of the Bazungus in our land. We want self determination. So Jibjaba is saying, Setu, is your dad a veteran? Jibjaba, no. Actually, we used to be going into Jibjaba's comment. We had like we had like there was a grown up man in our village. He used to say, "You guys, we are rich. You have a lot of land." Holy Maria, we have a lot of land just because by the time when our ancestors were, by the time when my father were going out for World War to fight for World War for your parents were sleeping. That's why these people normally they might give such stories in bars in villages. But my dad wasn't. My dad wasn't. My dad was from a loyal family. Wasn't involved in such. So say to how would you change that mindset with the people? The people. Um, and changing of mindset, Jibjaba, I think it starts with if at all we can in Africa start from decolonizing ourselves. We like we first the government should first and foremost look at the education system we have in Africa. That is the first creator of a mindset in African people. The education system. If at all we can scrap, we can delete, we can discard the education system these people created, we can fight the generations the forthcoming generations that are going to come. The mindset will be at low pace or at low frequency because the mindset is created by education we are having, by the influence we have in media. Because of actually these people by the time they were in Africa too much, they were directly into African everything. Social media was not there. The media influence was low in Africa. The media influence was low in Africa. But right about now, I says I agree. But right about now, the media is like you find a lot of media houses. They're preaching about the behavior, the Bazungu behavior. You find a full program on a national television. It is explaining, it is giving full hours for Russia, Ukraine war. We don't need it in Africa. But now we don't. It's we don't support like Russia or Ukraine to those people to be involved in a war. But that is not our politics. We don't need it. But these people they keep on pushing their ideas and ideologies to Africa by paying for such wars to be seen in Africa. You find national televisions giving a full program for such. So how is that mindset going to go out of or out of Africans when we still embrace such in our media, in our education system, which is actually the root cause of everything? Because of course we learn like we have we have like fake history we learn about Africa. You find someone in Africa who doesn't know even like who doesn't know about his country, who doesn't know about African culture, different African culture. You find someone who doesn't know. You find very many people, and they know something. There is something they know. There is something they preach about, which is not true, which is not false. And African culture, African social setting is regarded as something which is bad, as something which is barbaric, just because of the mindset these people created. So I think that is the only way we can do that. Jabba. So, mhm, mhm. Furthermore, the United Nations in 1960 declaration on granting the independence to colonial countries and people stated that colonial exploitation is a denial of human rights and that the power should be transferred back to countries or territories concerned. So United Nations made a declaration in 1960s after those long years. Now they want to make a declaration. If at all that declaration dictated or indicated that that uh, that granting independence to colonial countries and peoples stated that colonial exploitation is a denial of human rights, and we still see even the United Nations in African countries doing what it declared in 1960, that exploitation of colonial exploitation in the form of slaves, in the form of resources, a lot of resources that are being exploited by the United Nations as a denial of human rights. I think the first organization, international organization to be summoned for that, it will be United Nations because they are exploiting Africa. They are terrorists, they are criminals. They are the people that are supporting rebel groups in countries that are rich in minerals, vast minerals in Africa. So they could be the first organization to be summoned, the first organization to be scrapped because they are forgetting what they said earlier in 1960, that colonial exploitation is a denial of human rights in territories concerned. And we still see them involving so much in in many African countries that have minerals, very many African countries that are rich in petrol, in very many African countries that are blessed with everything, but we still see these people like they bring their fake kind of charity. They think Africans we need charity rather than investments and business. So you see that be Maria bano abanyampi nabo basimbudde. Anyway, so those were one of the external factors why Africans woke up in the early 1960s to wake up and fight for their independences and fight to be decolonized from these countries. Those were some of the external factors. But still, a question is posed: do we need to get exposed to the external world and become decolonized today because we are under colonial period? However, it is in form of neocolonialism and new imperialism in Africa. Do we need to get exposed to those people? Do we need to fight another world war and engage in another world war to be fully decolonized in Africa? That is shit. We don't need that. We don't need, because the people that we see that interact, the presidents we see that interact with the Western people, very many presidents, very many people that have had education from those ends, they come to Africa as changed people, as oppressors, as criminals, as corrupt people, as people who embezzle government money, as people who mistreat their fellow Africans, as people who are ready to play syndicate in Africa that is selling out Africans to these people, that is selling out African minerals, that is selling out African rich. I wish even these people, if at all these Bazungus had a chance of taking out our land, taken out, like they bought the land on planes like they do for resources, they would have done this. And some there's some of African countries where they have done this. Never to they take land from those countries. So colonial exploitation involved siphoning off resource extraction, such as mining, profits to European shareholders at the expense of internal development. And and very many African presidents, they don't look into this. Um, whenever the Bazungos exploit Africa, let it be a business in Africa, they they always take profits out of Africa. They put them in their banks, they take they make developments in their areas, even the investments we have in Africa, foreign investments, China investments, UK or USA citizen are like investments we have in Africa. Africans don't gain in this. All the profits are taken out. But few few of the African leaders, they are seeing this because they are puppets. You see very many we are changing presidents in Western Africa, but you see them that they have just changed the faces of the oppressors, faces of the masters that they are supporting to different groups that are going to do the same. So we don't expect any developments in these countries. There is no way you're going to tell me I'm going to construct a nuclear plant in your country at the expense of my resources, at the expense of my uranium in the country, at the expense of the resources and the petroleum that I have in my country. Why is it? Can't you do this to for you? Because whenever the Bazungus, all these people from Europe or even other countries around Africa, these people they bring attachment, they bring a condition on whatever charity, they call them charity or donations, that they bring a string attached to this. You see, they tell you we're gonna construct this road, but you must accept this behind the doors. So for whatever profits that are made, you know, some people, there is most especially the Bazungus, there is something they have built into the minds of Africans as far as some presidents, like the former president of Uganda from 1971 to 1979, and that is it. I mean, most of the European people, they criticize this man to be barbaric, this man to be uneducated, this man to be a dictator, oppressor, and there is a way they frame him in their books, in their history for Africa, their designed history for Africa. There is a way they phrase him. But this is a man in 1972, after 1 year of being in power, like he chased all Asians from uh, from Uganda. He was like, you can no longer do business in Uganda. You can no longer do anything that is related to business in Uganda. You have to you have to go out. You have to leave Uganda for this. But by then, these people, they don't indicate that these people were mistreating Africans. These people were carrying out price discriminations for Ugandans. They will never tell you this. These people will never tell you that President Idi Amin Dada, by then, he told the same people to get a dual citizenship for Uganda and their country. India, so that to have a dual citizenship, to get a Ugandan citizenship, and these people refused. That's why they were chased. Actually, it is a primary reason why these people were chased out of Uganda. But very many people will not tell you this. They will tell you Idi Amin Dada was an oppressor. Idi Amin Dada killed a lot of people. Idi Amin Idi Amin Dada chased Asians out of Uganda, Indians. But this is a guy that told these people to get Ugandan citizenship so that whatever business these people are doing is for Ugandans. The profits these people get, they are either enjoyed within Uganda, but these are the people that are working from Uganda, and the profits were taken out of Uganda. The money they got, it was banked in banks that were not in Uganda, the banks that were in India, banks that were in USA, banks that were in UK, but Africa, there is no way Africans were gaining this, Ugandans were gaining this. The people that are carrying out, of course, price discriminations are people that are mistreating Ugandans in their own land. But very many people won't tell you this because, of course, Uganda was not gaining this. It wasn't gaining this like you're carrying out business. And this man saw this earlier. It saw this prior to this. He looked at this before anybody in the world looked at this. But he was he was drafted as a bad man in books. He was drafted as a dictator. But people are not looking at this, that Uganda was not getting any profits from these people. The natives of Uganda were not even enjoying 1% of the profits these people were making from Uganda, and they were getting a lot of profits by them. So it is the same thing here, that colonial economic exploitation involved shipping of resources extraction, just as now. It's still going on. The name just changed from colonialism maybe to neo-colonialism, but these things are still going on in Africa. Economic exploitations. This involved actually siphoning of resource extraction, such as the mines. We have gold mines in Africa. We have now recently the new discoveries in very many African countries. It is oil, but our African countries don't gain the profits in this. They don't get anything from this apart from these people milking African countries without feeding. Actually, I used to say you're milking a cow without feeding. They're just milking African countries. We are not gaining from this. So causing major socioeconomic grievances among the people. So this if at all we can wake up as Africa and raise these socioeconomic grievances because of not gaining in these people they're doing in Africa, yeah, okay, Kita. It says exactly. Say too, they were very racist towards African people. Yeah, the Indians so racist. I remember like by the time when those guys were just from Uganda, I had my granny used to tell me that even those people that used to work them to make the referees, uh, those guys were not respecting them. Those guys, there is a way they treated them in an awkward way. Like they're not, hey, these people wanted us to leave Uganda and settle in another country. Otherwise, if we do if at this time we still have those people sucking Uganda's wealth, we will be so poor like nothing. Just like the real South Africans in South Africa they are experiencing. You find like very many real South Africans, black South Africans, they're suffering in South Africa. They are the people that are living in slums. They're the people that are being exploited, are enjoying bad schools, enjoying they're the people that are going through in substandard hotels. That they're going through a lot just because of these people. All right, okay, exactly. So that's the fact that he was sucking the wealth of Uganda. Okay, then and the fact that is Kenya had tried the same thing before Uganda said, like serious. Like serious. Kenyans don't learn because there are a lot of bazugos. And actually, when these people were chased out of Uganda in 1972 by Idi Amin, some of them they went to Kenya. They went to Kenya, and in history you find out like these people were not compensated, or but these people were compensated for living for the businesses they had in Uganda after chasing them. These people were compensated, but history will never tell you this. It will never. They always so a lot of their businesses in Uganda that were they made losses in Uganda, their businesses, their what. Gone exactly say to its complete exploitation of Africa for others' benefit, not yours. For for and these people they are not shy about this. They are not shy about this. They are not shy about this. Last night I was watching a video about the Chinese that were in mines, and you know uh, they were in mines and landfall onto people that were mining. The Chinese ran away. They left Africans to die in the mines when land was slipping off. Africans, they like the guys who ride. We need hope. We need hope. But these guys were just looking at them. You're just joking with these people. So um in the 1930 like I'm going to go into these things step by step. In the 1930s, the colonial powers had cultivated sometimes they had cultivated sometimes inadvertently a small elite of local African leaders educated in the Western universities, uh, where they became familiar with the frequent ideals such as self-determination. These are the people that have become a problem to Africa. Let me repeat this. In the 1930s, the colonial powers had cultivated, sometimes inadvertently, a small elite of local African leaders educated in Western universities. These are the people that have become a real problem to Africa now, because these are the people that came to Africa, and they were spreading Western ideas. God, most of them they learned that self-determination by then was so important. But these are the people that could have opened the minds of other Africans by then. But they just slept on truth just because they were fed with a lot of false about Africa. But these people they came out of those universities that were given these people were the so-called elites. They came out of those universities. They came to Africa spreading Western ideas on African soils. These are the people that we are suffering because of these people they are so-called pioneers of African decolonization. Because we see most of them they came like we want self-determination, we want independence, we want what, but these people turned. They just turned after all this. They turned after all this, and we are suffering because of them. Mhm. We see that where most of them they became familiar with we are fluent in new ideas such as self-determination. Although independence was not encouraged, arrangements between the leaders and the colonial powers developed. Such are the figures of Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya. Yeah, we know about Jomo Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya, Kwame Nkrumah in Gold Coast or Ghana. Now now the so-called Tanzania, um, Leopold Sedar of Senegal, Nanda Azikiwe of Nigeria, Patrice Lumumba of DR Congo, DRC, Felix um, of Cote d'Ivoire came to lead the struggle in African nationalism. These are the people that were at least got some little educations, little education from these people, and now came back to Africa during those days to spearhead the independence or decolonization of Africa. But by then, there is a way Bazongo's drafted our minds even after these people realizing that Africa needs to be free, and it is the same thing that is happening now. Our presidents know that Africa needs to be free. Africa needs to be for Africans. We don't need to feed on any on people's asses. We need to be under anyone. We Whatever we have in Africa is enough for us. These people knew, but for now, just like it was during the dialect colonial periods, um, for we getting independence is not encouraged now. Is not encouraged now because these people they are supporting governments that we want to be decolonized, that we want our countries, Africa, to be for Africans. These people are supporting them with money. They're supporting presidents, and this money is not for African countries. It is for individuals in African countries. But these are the people who are like our leaders, our presidents in Africa, just like it was at the eve of getting or of the struggle of getting independence in African countries. All right. During the Second World War, some local African industries and towns expanded when the U-boats are patrolling the Atlantic Ocean, reduced raw material transportation to Europe. Mm, yeah, and over time, urban communities, industries, and trade unions grew, improving literacy and education, leading to pro-independence newspaper establishments. So today we have a lot of developments in Africa. Today we have a lot of educated Africans in science, in politics, and in social life. But due to the fact that our education system we have in Africa, even when an African person lives here and goes to European countries, the education system he gets will not direct him, will not open his mind to uh, to understand that Africa is under slavery, that Africa is under neocolonialism, that Africa is going through imperialism. Someone will not know, but we have educated people. We have educated people. We have educated people in different spheres of life in Africa. But we don't get that education where our minds are to be open to move out of the box, that we must be free out of anything that is related to foreign influence in Africa. We lack that in education system. I see very many Africans. Yeah, even in Uganda here, I see very many people in Uganda here, even African. You tell someone, um, because whenever Bazungus come, they relate with local people. They use local people to steal whatever they want to steal, to do whatever shit they want to do. But someone will tell you, um, what do I need? What should I do now for them? What should I do if Mzungu, if we are using Bazungu products now? What should I do about it? If at all it is the education system that is how hopeless African people are, not only in Uganda but the whole Africa. Someone will tell you, yeah, if the GMOs are in Kenya now, what should I do about it? I have nothing to do about it. Let's consume. That is what Africa. That is how far African people are hopeless about this whole thing. Mm. So uh, actually there is there is extensive body of literature that has actually explained the legacy of colonialism and in colonial institutions on economic outcomes in Africa. Yeah, we have heard about that. A lot of people have written a lot about economic system, but the economic legacy of colonialism is difficult actually to quantify and disputed because colonial powers built infrastructure to integrate Africa. Just the fa- I don't know how I can explain this. That they talk about building infrastructure like to make Africa as one, like to but these people they don't build any infrastructure in Africa. They just make demarcations in Africa. They did not build infrastructures in Africa during colonial period, but they just built demarcations in Africa. But a lot of books they will tell you that during colonial period colonial powers, they built infrastructure. How? When did they build infrastructures? They just built, they just constructed and built demarcations. Uganda, you're not allowed to cross to Kenya. Uganda, you end from here. Tanzania, you're not allowed to cross to Zambia. You end from here. You are Burkina Faso or Nigeria. You're not allowed to cross to Niger and Niger. Your demarcation is here. They just brought those demarcations to separate Africa, to separate Africans, to make Africans believe that they are totally separate people from different areas. And very many Africans stupidly think that they're different. For me, I'm Uganda, I'm different from Kenyans. For me, I'm from Tanzania. I'm different from people that live in Burkina Faso. For me, I live in Ethiopia. I'm so different from people that live in Southern Sudan. That is what these people created from we, creating these demarcations they created. That is how they because of course they are creating them for their divide and rule shit so they can divide Africa. We are dividing. They want to divide. We have to rule Uganda. We have to rule Kenya separate. That's how. So we have to make demarcations. But you find Africans, they say you're from Rwanda. You're so different. You're different. You're not Ugandan. You're different. That is what we have in our minds in Africa. Right. Let me start from here, from Jib Jabba. Yeah, it was and is run as a cartel. A few own the business, like serious. A few own even the Bazungus. A few of them just own the business. Like in 2021, yeah, after COVID-19 shit. There was a scandal in Ugandan government about the coffee bill. Like in Uganda, they want to bring, they were like they wanted to give all farmers of coffee, very many people, and actually, most especially in central Uganda, where I come from, uh, these people they were like the government was creating like if you have coffee in your garden, you grew your coffee, you toiled to get coffee, you're raised in the garden, you grew your coffee, you have to get a permit for coffee to grow coffee, your own coffee. So after no, on top of that, the bill was like you after growing all your coffee, we are the one to get for you market. You're not allowed to sell it anywhere. We get for you market for that coffee you have grown, you have toiled, you wake up late, you wake up very early and leave very late in the garden, but they get for you market. They are the same people that have to get for you the market. You're not allowed to sell your coffee anywhere. You sell to them. That's what they were bringing into the law. Now they went on with whatever they actually it went from the bill to a law. Then what happened in Jigjaba? They were selling all this coffee to an American woman, an individual. They made agreements, a whole government made an agreement with a certain individual, a woman in USA, was an American woman that is going to buy all that coffee. This woman dictated which price to buy Ugandan coffee. So when things went worse, they were like they started saying, "How can you sell coffee to an individual? How can you do such shit?" And he's the same person that is dictating the prices. So whenever these people are doing whatever they are doing, profits and enjoying whatever that comes out of this shit, there it is enjoyed within a few individuals. It is not for the whole country. Even when they have these foreigners have businesses in Africa, it is enjoyed by them. There is no African will enjoy from this. There is no African that is going to gain in this. There is no way they will call INNOSSETU to enjoy the profits. And these people don't pay taxes, by the way. They don't, because they have links in the governments. They don't pay taxes. They give them land, they construct their fucking shit, but they don't pay taxes. So enjoyment of profits is per personal basis. Mhm. 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 Mr. Blackwood Fire says, Chinese don't give a shit about African people. I don't understand why Africans don't understand this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very many Africans, and there is a way. There is a way Keith Africans say things. There is a way Africans see things, and there is a way Africans put themselves at the forefront when they see these people with white faces, with Bazungu faces. There is how Africans react about this just because it is in their mindset. It has been throughout their entire life that the Bazungus are superior, the Bazungus are good, the Bazungus don't do shit, the Bazungus don't go bad, the Bazungu. It is just in the minds of Africans over the years. Someone grows up thinking like Bazungus are rich, someone grows some you find someone in Africa at my age who doesn't know that there are even street people like people who stay on streets in USA, in China. Someone will tell that it's not true, that you find no one on the streets. So in those countries are rich, their people are rich. So and most of these people that come to Africa, they are the poorest, the wazungus. Apart from these people that directly relate with the presidents, they make and they make agreements. But these people, they are the poorest that come to Africa. I know a Chinese man who was repairing shoes. He was repairing shoes somewhere, something which an African person could have done, or something. So Africans, there is that mindset they have over Bazungus. They think Bazungus are superior, Bazungus are ever correct, Bazungus don't make mistakes. But Africans, they don't jump out of this shit. You see very many people like you see like news goes around. There is a year when I saw a video about a certain Chinese man who cut off a Ugandan man a finger. They were like they cut the finger off. Why you refused to do what? And they were working in a company and the guy made some shit and they cut his finger off. But you still see stupid Africans still going in for the same countries, still relating with the same people even after seeing that they are bad, even after studying in history that these people carried out slavery to our ancestors. But these people, Africans won't learn. Africans don't learn from mistakes. I'm sorry to say this. I'm an African. But Africans, we don't learn from mistakes because it's not that we are not exposed enough, but because even the most educated people, you find them doing shit. Even the most educated, you find them not thinking about what to. They don't have that brain capital in their heads. They're thinking about other things, like they think about having money in their pockets. They don't know where that money comes from. They don't know what money is backed by what. They don't know money is backed by what. They don't know. You find someone educated but stupid. They don't think out of the box how the world and Africa runs. People are not the Africans are most Africans, they are not to that level. There is a way they view things differently, and when it comes to as you go, Africans, my God. Mhm. Jibjaba says you are black and that's how the world views us. So Jibjaba, the world views us that we are black, that we are black. That's how the world view us, that we are black. Yeah, we are black people. I'm proud of that. We are black. We are black, but we shouldn't have been, you know, stupid brains, ignorant. And even if actually you come out like you give a platform to some people, like in Africa, you come out and say, like you give out a view on a big platform, people won't give you attention. People don't want truth. They always want to be lied by social media, by the media houses, to give them what their minds want to hear, but not what they must hear. And the social media and the media houses, they are so good in building, in modeling African brains. They will give you what you want to hear. If at all you find a whole radio station or a TV station scheduling only pressure from Monday to Friday, there are a lot of there are a lot of African radios that are so prominent, that are so famous, that are so known, but you find that they don't even have in a day a program that talks about their country or Africa. A lot in Africa, you find them, but they don't have that to talk about African history. And by the way, even in some schools now in Africa, you find that they have scrapped away African history. You find schools that have made other things simple more than history. You find very many schools in Africa making history students fail intendedly to make other people that would have had that thought of history, of seeing things out of the box, they make them fail. A lot of it is happening. You find African schools, prominent African schools, they are scrapping out history and African history because, of course, me inclusive, in my high school when I was in my A level, like uh, we studied because I did history in my A level, but uh, we learned about European history. Now for what in Africa? We learned about Louis Philippe. We learned about Louis XVI. We learned about Metternich. That's what we learned. That's what we learned. We learned European history rather than African history that could have, at least however much it is fake, could have opened my mind for African issues. But we learned very many African schools they're scrapping out. Now I was like, when I was in A level, I was a bit growing up, so in mind, I was like, why is it that we learn about European history? How is it? How relevant is the history of France to me? How is Napoleon relevant to me? How how is I was connecting dots to these things, but I wasn't getting the right thing. How? Now is history for what? I'm an African. Why is it that I'm learning in geography? I'm learning about mining in uh, in Netherlands. I'm learning about reclamation in Netherlands. I'm learning about forests in California. I'm learning about Manitoba or what. I'm learning about things that are that are outside Africa where I've never even been. So I was connecting these things that how are they relevant? So that is the education system that we have in Africa, and it is making women African brains to think on things that are not African made, things that are not good for African identity. Yeah. So so however like very many during colonial period, the infrastructures, the demarcations, I don't believe in infrastructures. These people, men, these were all built mainly for the extraction purposes. The buildings, the buildings we have in Uganda, the Indians built in Uganda, they are for extraction purposes. These are the buildings of which the Indians were carrying out their businesses. I've not seen any building in Uganda that was built by the Indians that Ugandans were enjoying, that Ugandans were swimming into the enjoyment of that building, or whatever they were doing is majorly for extraction of Africans, just like it is now. You see the British infrastructures, the buildings that are in Kenya. I don't think Kenyans use. I don't think Kenyans enjoy about these buildings. That you find out such buildings, you find a business like for these people, banks for these people. So there is no way these people can put up a building that is going to be helpful for Africans. On a second note, we see China recently, like 3 years back in Uganda, built an express highway, a flyover road. But when actually, even if you Google right about now, it is the most expensive road in the whole world. But if you look at the road after 3 years now, it is having a lot of potholes. It is in poor condition. But to use this kind of road the Chinese constructed, you have to pay in some money. When I was still young, I was kind of funny, you know. The in villages we used to fetch even up to now we fetch water from wells. There are no taps in the villages. Even the boreholes are too current. The boreholes are too current in the villages. We used to fetch water from the wells. So there are days when they were like they make an announcement, maybe they drum or smoke something so to make you aware that tomorrow you're going to clean the well, even the road that goes to the well. Huh. But I wasn't so good into that, like go and clean, you dig around. And whenever we could actually clean the well during that time, we could go into the well, we remove all the water so that that natural water can come back after cleaning. Then I wasn't so much in that. So whenever, if at all there is a certain Kafida road that crosses through or via that well that leads you to the main road, if at all you didn't want to clean, they didn't care about the age or what, you had to pay in something. You had to pay in something. I was like, how can I pay this? So I could avoid as much as possible to clean and to pay that amount, because for me, I grew up knowing a road is free. even if it is passing through your land, your road is free for everyone. It is no man's land. That's what I grew up knowing, that a road is free, it is no man's land. But you see, these people, the Chinese, for the 3 years the road has existed in Uganda, the road they constructed, and it is actually considered to be the most expensive road in the whole world. It is in Uganda. So this road, it is, first of all, it is right about now it is in poor condition because it has a lot of potholes. Secondly, to use that road, you have to pay in money. You have to pay in some money to use that road, and you don't pay that money to Ugandans. You never see Ugandans there. This money is paid to the Chinese. But for me, I grew up knowing the road is free. So when I heard on radios, they were like, we are going to pay in, we are going to pay for this road. If you want to use this road, you have to pay. I thought it was a joke, but people are paying for this road. People are paying out for this road, whatever it is used. So that's what these people do. There is nothing they will do for Africa that is for free, just for extraction and exploitation, and and the profits to go back to their countries. Mm. And African economies, by the way, during colonial time were structured to benefit the colonizer, and any surplus was likely to be drained, thereby shifting capital accumulation. See, so whatever they did was for colonizers. Whenever they could say, Uganda is a British protectorate, TZ or Tanganyika by then is for German, whatever that it belonged there, let it be people. And it is the same thing that is happening now. Was for these people. African presidents, they are too dumb to see this. That if you sell out your people, if you make assignments, if you make contracts, agreements, money deals with these people as an individual, it 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 affects the entire Africa. It affects the country respectively, that individual country respectively, and Africa at large. Because these people, of course, they will sign for you. They will tell you, "We're gonna give you money. We're gonna protect you so that you stay long in power. You give you security. We leave you. We give you money support, your children learn, we give visas, free visas to your kids. They come to our country and they learn and enjoy from our country. But the string attached to that is so harsh, and African presidents don't see this. The condition that is accompanied by that is by enslaving Africans. No matter what environment African countries they accept homosexuality, because it is a string attached, it is a condition that is brought in with the deal that you make, with the contract you make. That's why very many Chinese are exploiting minerals in very many African countries, because it is a string attached to a fake and physical loan they give, a non-cash loan these Chinese give. That is a string. They will tell you, we shall exploit your minerals, we are going to cultivate in your land for over these years. When we do this for you, we are going to mine sand from this lake. Mining in a lake is something which is so crazy. It's not good. Recently, recently was it last year? Yeah. Was it? No, it is this year, not last year. In Uganda, we have a lake. It's a river. Sorry, it is called River Katonga. God, it is called the River Katonga. Recently, that river block water jumped out of the bridge, and it took away the bridge recently, just because of the mining of sand in that river. And mining of this sand is not done by any average Ugandan. No average Ugandan is going to mine and to sell it well. No average Ugandan can mine sand from the lake, from the river. There is no way an average African will manage to mine gold somewhere. There is no way an average African is going to mine diamond in Congo. There is no way an average African is going to manage to mine oil somewhere. But these are the Chinese that are doing that. They mined a lot of sand in that river, and the water was like, whoosh, it was jumping over the bridge. At the bridge, it took away from that river, Katonga. It took away the whole bridge. So, and these people don't care about this. Of course, the transport freezed, and actually that road heads to my village, and transport freezed for over like 2 months. And even up to now, the bridge has not been constructed. So that is what Africa goes through. But the presidents don't look at this when they're signing their deals. They just sign deals, keep that money, make investments outside Africa. Even African presidents, they are as far as that. They don't keep their investments in Africa, in their countries, in their so-called countries. All the investments they make, they're outside Africa. They take them to different countries. They take them to European countries. Their investments, because of course we have seen very many African, I mean European countries come out, shout out to the bans they have made mm, to some African leaders that they seem to call like they seem to call that they are violating human rights, and they are freezing whatever businesses they have in their countries after getting misunderstandings outside the country. Now they bring them to us. Boom! For me, I was surprised. There is a certain leader in Africa. They shouted out. It was USA. It was in 2019, I think. It was a Ugandan guy, policeman. They were like, "You guy, your family, your kids, whoever comes in your line, we are sorry. We can no longer allow you in USA for now until that." I didn't know this guy was doing shit. The guy was like a calm guy in police, but the guys were like they brought reports, they made a document that went viral on social media, TVs, and all, and they were like, "You guy, we can no longer allow you in USA." Even they even went along and said that we even the businesses that you have in USA, just forget them. I didn't know this guy was doing shit or even had businesses in USA. I just low. So these people, they make their deals outside the curtain, but when they're throwing out you to us, everyone will know about this. How you have business. I didn't know this guy could be having money to have a good business in USA. But USA was like, the businesses you have in USA, now they're freezed, you can no longer get access to them. The money you have in USA banks, you can no longer get access to this money. That, that I was surprised how this comes about. But whenever they make their deals, they make them behind the curtain. So um and it is so hurting that you find African presidents that actually could have done for African people. You find them like they can't even invest in their own countries. Very many African presidents, you find them having businesses outside Africa, doing whatever they are doing outside Africa. So there is no way this can lift African countries from poorest countries to richest people. Because if at all you can make your investments outside Africa, your president. So what comes out of our minds that you just driven? Because these people, they will convince you that Africa is not stable, Africa is having poor people. Why don't you bring your money to our country? You're developing the other countries, but you don't care about this. your brains don't open as much as possible to open your eyes to see that you're developing Bazungu countries, you're developing European countries rather than your country. So um, so we see that a lot went on during colonial period. Despite this continued resilience and unfair trading terms, African countries found that a third of the countries experienced increased economic decreased economic growth post-independence, increased economic growth post-independence. Very many African countries they realized this that after getting independence, because after getting independence, very many African countries they had that simple that gradual growth after getting independence. So because very many whites were now out of Africa, were out of those countries directly, they could no longer exploit, they could no longer carry out slavery directly, they could no longer go into African mines directly. They had to pass through now some people. So um, if at all recently, Niger is one of the fastest growing African economies that are growing fast just after chasing out the oppressors, the masters that are behind the support of that country that called for support in that country, but it was still poor. It means if at all we can do away with any influence of Africa of Western countries, Africa can be one of the fastest growing continents in the whole world because we have whatever we need to grow. The resources we have are Nile, the resources we have in Africa are enough. But African presidents, they are not out for this. African presidents don't work out for this. We don't look further for this. I was colonialism and colonial period. Mhm. So um uh, to languages have been used by Western colonial periods to divide territories and create identities, which have led to conflicts and tension between African nations. Colonialism, and very many people don't look at this. You find today, like, to be praised, to be considered understanding in African communities today, to be considered someone who has brains, someone who's understanding, someone who's having a high IQ in Africa, you must be speaking um a foreign language and a Western language. Let it be French, let it be English, which is the mostly spoken in very many African countries. You must be good at that. But all this was created to divide, of course, vast territories, to create territories. And actually, these are new identities of Africans. This is the most painful thing. This is how we can now identify ourselves. But these are just to separate African nations, and this has been successful, I guess, because you find very many people in Rwanda speaking French, Congo, people speaking French, Uganda, Kenya, people speaking English, good English. Some of them are speaking like whites, but all this is to create differences. This is on our identity as we Africans. We don't have to identify ourselves as in languages like it is right about now in African communities. We identify ourselves in terms of languages, like, we know people from Rwanda, they are good at speaking French. People from Congo are good at speaking French. That is how we differentiate. And these are new identities of Africans which are not actually which are known, are for separation of Africans and disunity of Africans, right? So, um, following the World War II, rapid decolonization swept across the continent of Africa, as many territories gained independence from European colonization. We know that very well that we are seeing independences in African countries after the Second World War in 1945. African now African, the so-called African elites, Africans now waking up and see, people fighting for people fighting for independence, people fighting to stay alone, people fighting to do away with any foreign influence. What are we doing? We need to fight for ourselves. So we're seeing that independence in that fake political independence coming out after the Second World War in 1945. And in August, of course, 1941, United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt and the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill met to discuss the post-war goals. In that meeting, they agreed to the Atlantic Charter, which in part stipulated that uh, the world respect of the right of all peoples to choose the form of government under and their will to live. They wish to see the sovereign rights and self-government restored to those that have been forcibly deprived of them. This agreement became the post-World War II stepping stone towards the independence of nationalism growth in throughout Africa. Yeah. Now, in Africa, now right about now, we don't need to be convinced about the human rights, because even the people that are too much into preaching the human rights in Africa, the so-called Ibazungos, the people that I feel so remorseful for the human rights in Africa, they are the most people that have caused uh, a lot of mistreatments of human rights in Africa. Um, we don't need to be told such stories in this modern era. All right. The consumed post-war that European powers were no longer able to afford the resources needed to maintain control over their African colonies, which is which is nzija ku mulamwa nzija ku mulamwa jangu tukole naawe so jangu naawe okikube mukama wo nawe dda waali mukama wo wedda waali ne baaba ate obwedda mbenyaamenyamu wembi obwedda like I've been trying to explain about this decolonization. Yeah, fine today we are still going through we are still going through yeah 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 which I believe. So I was still saying that yeah, we are still going through colonialism in Africa, even right about now in African countries. However, it changed the name and the tactics. Yeah. But we need decolonization, but we're not going to use the old methods that were used after the Second World War. Hmm? But what we need is to understand the matrix of everything that is going on in this new colonialism, the neo-colonialism. We just need to understand the matrix, how it is, how it is run, which people run them, at what time, how again. So that's what I've been talking about here. I don't know what you talk about this Mm.
All right. Like I was like I told you before I left
Mm.
that whatever system or program this people was
Ngovi
introduced.
wekame. Mm.
Oh, kuja kugira whatever program or
Mm.
system these people usually introduce,
Mm.
there is always a reason for it.
Mm.
And the issue of Africans not knowing why this is usually done has kept us chained. And that's why usually we believe in their programs, in vaccination, political styles, everything,
Mm.
because we still trust them.
Mm.
We still have that trust.
Mm.
And the governments, most of the governments of Africa have not taken it to, you know,
Mm.
teach or educate
Mm.
the people. Because it also knows that once these people get to understand shit,
Mm.
probably it may be hard for us to control them.
Mm.
And that's why they keep everyone sleeping. A lot of Africans trust the Europeans, they trust the Bazungu, not only with their leadership, but also the messages they carry and everything. That's why even our education system is still being controlled by those people. That's why when Mzungu speaks, Africans will respect and listen compared to when their fellow African speaks. Even if they speak the same message at the same time,
Mm.
leaving all factors constant,
Mm.
Africans will believe the Mzungu.
Mm.
Why? Because they were not told the truth. They were not told the truth about the colonization. They're not told the truth about the neo-colonization that is going that's taking place. And for those who ever heard about slavery, still had just a little pinch of it. They were never told the truth about the genocide that has been taking place in Africa for a very long time. Apparently, a lot of Africans are agreeing about this. And this is where I'm diving back to the question like you asked me.
Mm.
And I'll still tell you one thing. Most Africans do not know that we are not independent.
Mm.
Once they celebrate or jubilate that day they attained independence, of course it's usually a public holiday, apart from Tanzania, where Magufuli scrapped that shit away. People will celebrate. People eat fish, meat, beef, barbecue, stuff.
And
They are
music.
celebrating. So
Mm.
there is no you can tell somebody
Mm.
such a thing that as you're celebrating today, bro, you are not independent. We'll be
Mm.
like, what are you talking about?
Mm.
If we look at those symbols of independence we have a flag,
Mm.
all right? We have our currency, okay? We have a symbol, of course, of like government, like let me say a coat of arms. They'll give you all these symbols that signify independence, and actually, they will not know that these symbols they are mentioning are just tangible things
Mm.
that have not created an impact of a country,
Mm.
or they have not created impact to that country. What is the essence of me having my own currency
Mm.
when actually it's somebody else who's controlling it?
Mm.
What is the essence of me having my currency
Mm.
when the economy of Uganda is being controlled
Mm.
by somebody else? It doesn't make sense. No, because they give you something to hold, and Africans were given something to hold. That something they are holding has not had a significance in their existence and in the definition of whatever country they are living in. Because whatever Uganda is going through, almost every African country is going through. The only difference is we are being hit differently. So when we look at all these things, first of all, are you respected as an independent country? Are you respected by whoever claimed that has let you have that independence? Are they accepting that? The way to accept or to let go or to show us that we are independent is to allow us make laws of our own. Don't be dictating on what to do. Recently, we saw Africa say we don't want homosexual. Now, people are on our back simply because people say we don't want homosexual. People decide to say, well, we are not going to do shit, and keep on bumping on us all the time because we have decided not to do shit that you want. So how can you claim that? How can you even call me Uganda after all? How can you call me Uganda when I'm still being colonized by America? I'm still being told what to do. By the British, I'm still being told what to do by the Chinese and stuff like that. How can I stand and segregate myself or break free from all these things? If we wake up and first of all accept, acceptancy is the number one road to achieving a solution. But unless people accept, we may not be able to find answers. And that's why usually when we are here, Keith is always like, how come that you people think different from others? How come those other people don't really understand shit you do understand? It is not that we are born from different mothers. It is not that we are different, we are the same. The problem is others do not accept or do not believe in what we believe in. And I think that's one major issue. Lwaki ezo comment teziyeyongerako? Waliwo comment back. Kyokutaba yagenze.
Aleka weebali. Comment with disease.
Ng'ozisomye. Bazizeemu.
Nazisomye dda nabazzamu dda.
Can't help you.
Omuntu gwe kyakuluma. So, and I was saying that wango bwana nti wakutawudde nate nkyagenda mu maaso ne gundi, but anyway, like we have not had enough, we Africans, to understand what is called independence.
We don't know what it is.
In fact, on Independence Day, Africans would have rioted.
That would be the day of demonstration, boycotting shit.
But we don't understand what is the real meaning of independence. And very many Africans will define independence depending on the fake independence we have.
Yeah,
that's how they will judge independence, and it's done.
Even forget defining it according to the fake. Defining it the way they describe it. The way we define it, the way they describe it. We don't define independence on our own terms. We do not define independence the way we find fit. Independence is defined according to their own terms and conditions. So, first of all, we have never thought what it means to be independent, and that's why that independent history is never told. Somebody wants to know that there is a certain time where Africa was free, had no control. They will tell you freedom from control. influence, support, aid. And this is just a new updated Google independence. The Google independence sheet is the independence that usually depends on the human right thing. If you type in Google, like what is independence, basically it is focusing on human rights, and it is short, and their independence is usually updated with the time. Google changes that definition with the time. You know. Hebu yogede bambi okumala essaawa
Sawa emmere.
tugenda kuweza peace. Oh, okay.
So, so, so Africans, we don't understand the real meaning of independence. No matter why, because however much these people's education system is bad, but it has not blinded our minds to think the real meaning of independence. But the presidents we have, the puppets we have in Africa, there is a way they polish that thing of independence in the way they want. Take it to make people believe.
Yeah, first of all, they exaggerate the
Take it. Yeah.
They
However,
exaggerate that they.
however, in the colonial era, colonialism actually referred mostly to the Western countries. Colonization of lands mainly in Africa, Asia, or wherever. So the main European countries active in this form of colonialism included Spain, Portugal, France, the King of England, and others. So we have modern colonialism, which is the neo-colonialism, and people don't understand this. People have a misconception over um, modern colonialism and development. Let's take it over. And colonialism and neo-colonialism.
Yeah.
Like whenever there are a lot of things that are devo- that are like come from those countries to African countries. Like people don't look at this as colonialism. Like for example, homosexuality. Secondly, like importation of NGOs in Africa. Secondly, existence of NGOs that are doing nothing in Africa rather than stealing, making crimes, supporting rebel groups. Together. So people look at that as charity and modernization and urbanization. Together. So people like and I ask myself why even in schools now they study about the colonialism. The other colonialism they don't talk about this new form of colonialism, the new colonialism that we are going through.
It's hard even for someone to understand it.
Even newe
It is a term that is hard to
bagirese like okugyogerako bagyogerako birungi beere, they will talk about only the advantages of new colonialism. They will not talk about the shit these people do. Tugigayo tunadda.
Tumale tuwezeeko ebbiri kitundu.
Tubigale. So a lot is
tusomye nange nsoma betaali ngulamu.
agenda tandikirawo okusoma.
Of course, in the colonial era, in the colonial era, colonialism was of course, in a context, it was referred to most of the Western European countries' colonization of lands and mainly in yeah, little. And let me try to check. Ano, ndaba. Mm. But what did you say about
Better.
Watankati? Ha 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 ha. Kale, don't worry about that now. Chideke. That's enough.
Enough.
Mm. Byamuyega ko wali eri wali mu wezulwadde. Wee.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying that when
Thank
people
you.
um the main European countries that of course when we look at colonization people usually will first put their mind to countries that colonized Africa like Spain, Portugal, France, and other African countries. But now we have in Russia come in the picture. Of course, a Kingdom of England still also in the picture. We're having China. We're having even Netherlands, United States of America, and other. Now, some European colonization focus on shorter term exploitation of economic opportunities. For example, like the issues in Congo or Siberia, which are address specific goals such as settlers seeking religious freedom, massacres. So it doesn't really explain like the real facts and the base
Mm.
colonization or the modern colonization is sitting on.
Mm.
And we have people who gear the modern colonization. We have the elements or the tools, those are the African leaders that are
Mm.
used in this. The mainstream also has a very huge role it's playing in this. We have
Mm.
the education system, it also has a huge role it's playing in this. We are being exploited mentally
Mm.
as well. And this is something that a lot of Africans don't look at as a bigger subject. But I think mental exploitation is the worst form of exploitation ever. And this has been exercised, and that's why it is very hard to see Africans probably waking up to the true reality. Your thinking is limited, your thinking is so controlled. Apparently whatever you do is what they want you to do. Like you are programmed to do what you're doing. You know that every Sunday should be a holiday because you are programmed to believe that Saturday and Sunday are
Mm.
weekends. All right. Even if they are favoring you, they are weekends now that you are told that at exactly this time I'm supposed to be eating. You
Mm.
eat the time they choose for you.
Mm.
All right. They will tell you this and
I don't know where people get it that if you don't eat from, or if you don't eat at one, you get outside. I don't know where that thing comes from. If you don't eat at one, when I see in schools bells, they always run bells at one. Eating. Yeah, there is a way
lunch
we are
break,
driven. Oh, like a speed,
morning
yeah.
break, lunch break.
Mm.
I think usually then evening break,
Mm.
we are programmed.
Mm.
If someone can control when you're going to the toilet,
Mm. 3 times a day.
how
How come?
when you're going to go to the toilet, how you should even go there, what you should do there,
Mm.
then that person apparently is controlling you in everything you do. You even control on how we dress. Last time I was giving you the example of what I saw in Kenya where everyone like was dressing so British. And I think you're supposed to dress so British for you to show that you
mm,
are a person of class.
mm,
And but we are supposed to celebrate their holidays.
mm.
Christmas is coming. You see everybody going to. Are you going to the village?
On Christmas? No. I'll be working.
Your mom won't kill you. So you see people celebrating Christmas. People will go for Christmas and stuff like that. They decide when you should have
Mm,
holidays. But usually, I'm just sharing the Jibjaba.
mm.
But usually, when you look at the holidays, I'm talking to you, but I'm not sure.
We don't know.
When you look at the season agenda, that's very long. Don't be
Each master on a wheel.
don't be a hamster on a wheel. Tell me something. You could be a capture from there, capture from there, you get off and kind of believe it.
Eh. Yega nno like okubeera nga like nga olaba omukadde ngaali mwaka gundi akeetooloola bwe kati.
Cute cabbage chicks. Affections of depression or anxiety. But why? Why did you
Reaching
say
the
that?
end of
Mm? Reaching the end of the what?
the theory and stuff.
I think you take a page and make masters once you eat or drink too much first time when you lose
But
No, Jujaba should explain. As much as Jujaba should explain what he means by that. What do you mean by
that
that,
the
Jujaba?
constant effort to run away from where they are gets them stuck in a never-ending routine.
Name of one.
Like wemanyiiza ekintu, maybe he was trying to explain
Oh,
about the other regular things of at one you have to eat. I just guess because yeah, the theory say that it's a constant effort to run away from where they are gets them stuck in never-ending routine.
Ravetololanga wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Like a cat in a wheel.
Like the more you want to like to run out of something, the more you keep on.
Um, I know usually
Mm.
who love the image will understand.
Yeah.
Yes. You say the cat and the image you bring the cat. You say the white cat we never know actually to some eat or drink or shit like that. So anyway, I think we believe. Why do we still have to keep on doing this? Because we believe we are inferior,
Mm.
and whatever decision these people have made for us is the only right decision.
Mm.
Whatever thing they have chosen is what we should follow. To the point that Africa thinks whatever they do is what every person in the world is doing, or whatever is done in Africa is being done everywhere. Yet we do a lot of things that people don't do.
Mm.
That's why I say Africans exaggerate a lot about issues. They look at something small and they exaggerate about it. Now, for us, we believe everyone at exactly 10, someone is having a break. At exactly this time, someone is doing shit like this. Yet these other people are doing different things. You are told to, oh shit, shit, oh shit. You are told, it's okay. Sorry.
You told what?
Here. Mask on. Thank you. We are told to celebrate, for example, things like Christmas. And during Christmas time, Africa shouldn't even be resting because it is the season like where the sun, where there is good temperatures, climate, stuff like that. People should be having a lot going on, but we celebrate it, because our colonial masters celebrated it. They did this because usually during December they have, that's their month anyway. They have winter, and it's always snowing, so they cannot do a lot of things when the snow is at its peak. But Africans still follow this and think we are doing this because the rest of the world is doing. Africans don't understand that we are different from the rest of the world. And this is why this whole system has never worked for us. We are very different. We've got a different climate. We've got a different weather. We have, different kind of soil. The humidity is different. The temperatures in Africa are different. We experience the sun differently. We experience the sun almost every day. It is hard for you not to see sun come out in Africa. Some other places even take weeks and months without seeing the real sun. Jibijaba, where you are, like, how long does it take you to see the sun? Is it that every day you see the sun come out, or do you see twice in a day? Whatever. I don't know, but according to where you are, some other people will say that we can see the weather, but we cannot see the sun in the sky. And there is that time when they see the sun hit the sky, everybody's almost moving naked. We see the sun every day, whether it's raining. When we talk about it's raining in Africa, it doesn't mean we have not seen the sun. The sun will come. It may come for some time, and it rains. And sometimes it rains when it is also, shining. So it depends. Now, if you look at our climate, we look at our weather, you look at everything that is in Africa, it is different from what is going on the rest of the world, which would at least make us stand out different. We should be having our own control over things. We should be deciding when to have to rest, when to have holidays, when not to do what, and when not to, and when to do what, because we are very different. We cannot be running on these people's calendar when their calendar cannot fit. The reason why, these people, they usually say Amzungu's time is very, for Amzungu, time is very, very important. For Amzungu, time is very important. Oh, yeah.
And Zoom time is very important.
For Amzungu.
Um, like actually, sometimes I don't criticize my mom, but one time I was trying to bring out something for my mom, and I was like telling her, um, I was telling her, Mom, are you seeing this that is happening? We do celebrate the Christmases, which we even don't know about the genesis of the Christmas or what. Do you know what my mom told me? Maria, do you know what my mom told me about that? She was like, if you don't know about the genesis, eh, just follow. Don't wiseacre. Don't make yourself somebody who is understanding. Somebody who so, and it is not the case with my mom only. Very many people, like in Africa, we are not inferior, but we are we are ignorant about certain things first. Secondly, we don't believe in our identity, apart from identifying ourselves in religion. Okitegeera, those new identities that these people created, that is the only way we can identify. That's why you find that there are very many people that can spend a year, a full year without going to the village to see the relatives, the what. That person goes on Christmas. So that is how these people designed us, how we can relate, how we can identify ourselves. You find someone working in Kenya, he comes to Uganda on Christmas and Easter. Bunch.
Because that's the holiday. Because they believe that's the holiday.
So, so if we can, Okomio,
Colonization may be used as a method of
or
it can be used as a method of absorbing and assimilating foreign people into the culture of the imperial country. One instrument to this end is linguistic imperialism,
yeah,
or the use of non-indigenous colonial languages
yeah,
to the exclusion of any indigenous language from administrative and often or any public use.
yeah, linguistic imperialism,
For
yeah.
you to of course get a job, you should either
Mm.
know how to write and read English,
English.
even in a country where people don't speak English. You should know how to communicate fluently. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how you project smartness in whatever field. But if you cannot communicate in English, yet you're even not going to talk to the Bazungu. At the end of the day, you are communicating to your fellow Africans, fellow Black people in whichever region you are. If you cannot speak that colonial language, it may be hard for you to get a job. So we cannot be talking about freedom, we can't be talking about independence when we are still using these very languages. There is that clip that is going, uh, that is circulating on the Uganda's media where Otafire, a journalist asked Otafire in
The local
in the
language.
local language.
Yeah.
Otafire told the journalist,
Use English.
use English,
Mm.
and the journalist had to phrase and changed the language and used English. As much as Otafire is not a Muganda, or he does not speak the language this journalist asked, went okay. There is a way he made it seem like it is important, of which, yeah, it is, because this is what we have been made to, okay, or this is what we have become. The comment, when I went through the comment section, of course, yes, I dropped in some of my comments. I cannot let that go. It cannot pass me. The comments I was reading, we had a lot of people commenting. The only thing that was hurting everybody who commented positively, a little bit positively, was the fact that Kahinda Otafire refused to speak in this language. It was not, he doesn't speak, he doesn't come from that region. Like, we have tribalism. He does not speak that language. He's somebody who speaks a different language from the western part of Uganda. And for you to be asking him to speak in your language, that's why he was like, speak English. Now, other people who were speaking this very English, this journalist spoke, took it so personal. Now, this is the level where we are at. We no longer identify things for the concern of the entire Africa. We We personalize everything, which at the end makes it seem like we are segregating, differentiating. If Otafide had spoken his language, it would also be another conflict. Why is he speaking his language? Do we come from the Western part? You understand? It would be another conflict. So I saw a lot of they saw a Pan-African she and whoever believes they are on tripping on that video, but they were tripping for wrong reasons. It is okay. It is okay. Well, why did he embrace it? It is okay. But they were tripping for a wrong reason. I can bet that if he spoke his language, they would still complain. We are all not from the Western. I mean, you cannot speak to us. But you wanted him to speak in your language. Now, this is the seed they planted, and it is yielding. Really, it has big fruits. Yeah, it is very healthy because we have been given that tribalistic feeling that we deny other people's languages, that we feel. And that's why at times when people say, um, we should have one common language, you will still find that a lot of people are debating about it. But I'm very grateful that biggest population of Africans are voting in for Kiswahili. And usually the people who are highly voting in for Swahili are the East Africans and of course South Africans. These people are advocating for Swahili as a language that we should use internationally. When you go to the West Africa, most of them are not voting Swahili. They will either tell you we should maybe use Wolof, they should use this stuff. There is still a debate. But because these two regions, there is a lot in common between the Southern Africa and the East Africa. These people are like so very, they have a lot in common, like 99% of whatever first of all the language and everything, they pronounce their words and stuff. I guess this is why a lot of South Africans advocate for Swahili being a major language, and also the northern part, the northern, because there is a lot that is in common. So we have that tribal problem. Like I was giving the story of Otafire. It is not that I was, if he was to speak in the Western language, I would understand. But I know even if he had spoken in his own language, it would be a problem. People would be tripping over, people would be trolling over, people would be fighting. Why is he speaking in that language? We are not that, but they wanted him to speak in their language. So everyone wants to be identified, but not in something that has a common goal. And this is the issue. This is the problem we have. We want to be identified selfishly for unselfish reasons. Unless Africans start being selfish about different things, I believe we can achieve the real independence. We can achieve the real independence. We can break away from colonization. We still have people who identify themselves on a basis of religion, that if you do not belong to this religion, we cannot be friends. If you don't belong to this religion, you are not smart to tell me what to do. If you don't belong to this religion, and the funniest thing, if you look at the history of religion, when people were designing the first religions that came into Africa, it was designed with a little touch of culture, a little bit. But nowadays we have a lot of religions like the born agains and stuff, which actually look so modern, that a lot of the indigenous people who believed in those are the first religions that were introduced, do not believe in them anymore. Now, if you look at a Catholic, the way Catholics, the only difference between Catholics and Muslims is that Muslims marry more than one woman. Two, they use Arabic
mm,
as the language. Three, what they put on, but even the indigenous Catholics used to wear like the Muslims.
mm,
The only difference between these two religions is they were spread by different groups of people, but of course we know for the same purpose. There is Arabic in the Islam religion. They so very much idolize Arabic, and in Catholic it's always Latin. Um, that is, and these ones here you're supposed to marry one woman. The other side you can marry more than one. Um, but most of the things are the same.
mm,
Most of the things are the same, except that they always say Islamic religion takes much of the Sharia laws. They take laws in their hands a lot. So the Catholic religion was revised, but at the beginning it was as barbaric as this Islamic religion. And that's why of recent we have most of the people who come out to the campaign religion are usually Catholics, because they have seen how this Christianity has been transforming throughout history. It's changing, it changes its clothes. When I talk a lot, ngomuka gukoloza.
empewo omukka ekuwumula nno olaba bw'otegeera Oluganda.
Shut up. Don't say that.
Why oyagala okutegeera Oluganda?
You'll get up, okay.
Empewo omukka.
Oh.
So when these people like this kind of you've been talking about this fucking kind of linguistic imperialism, you find out that Innosetu is using a different language based on tribal
Mm,
basis.
mm,
You find that like there is another person having a different language still.
mm,
So these people brought in this kind of these new languages, the French, the what, Chinese,
mm,
German language. They brought them as like a way forward.
mm,
Hmm? So you fail your own self in your native language,
mm,
and the only option you have it is their language.
mm, mm,
No matter why you have been saying that, like the guy was like using English rather
mm,
than native language.
mm.
But if he was to use a native language,
They would
they
complain.
would complain.
Mm,
So these people brought that as like kyekisembayo, you have failed your native language. That is the option you have.
mm, mm,
Kitegeera?
mm,
I was talking here, telling like I was saying that like um and we already say this.
mm,
This is not the first time to say this. Like to be considered understanding in African communities, to be considered, like to give you that respect, to give you ranks of respect in African communities, you have to be knowing, even when you don't have very many degrees, you don't need to be having PhDs,
mm.
you don't need to have all you have to have is to speak a foreign language very well, a Western foreign language very well.
Yeah.
English, French, speak it very well. People will believe in you. You will have a lot of following. Okitegeera? You will get a lot of likes. Just if you're speaking out a foreign language.
Mm,
So that is the level at which Africa and African people think and
mm.
view
They measure
things.
intelligence
Yeah, yeah.
according to
That's how people
language.
measure things. That's how people view things in Africa.
Mm,
Okinawa. That's why very many African countries they have messed up with presidents and leaders
mm,
just because of that convinceness they have, which is false,
mm,
which is a European based. Very many African people have European minds.
mm. True. mzungu mind na black
Yeah,
body.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
true.
Very many Africans are crones.
Oyagala kutandika.
They have chronic minds. Yeah.
Oh,
Lukufumita, lukusoya, eh, oba ng'olubuto nga lusaanuka. Lukusaanuka. Ng'eyalidde ebiwaati. So, oh, sasa tujja kulaba nti abantu kumakya
tunasomako
simanyi na gye guggwera mazima yogera gwe nze oludda njogera gyemanyi nawe tumwekasa
ekifuba kibuuze yaba kifuba kyakulaga kibuuze kulanga kifuba
bagenda okufunira obwa bulwadde like it is a virus kiwe kifuba abantu balwalanga ebifuba funira eddagala they get medicine.
omusawo yangamba tuyinza okutandika eddagala nga mmaze kolera tesiti ya sande
Sasanga etuuse
nga afa katonga ne mukibiina nkololere mu kibuuzo ziyonna
olina kwewola kwogera nnyo kuba oyogerera ennyo empewo nekuyita ate olina kufuna ne sikaabu
yina
kuba oyogerera ennyo empewo ojja kuyitamu ate ekuyitirawo oti osooka obayiwamu n'okuseka nolina okwewala kuba mpulira nabantu butabuzindeera funa attitude nga yamaanyi obere emotion kuba wasekerawo oti it is health, total health. So we're sorry for that short break, but kufuwa bufuyi n'okupama. So like Jibijaba asked me a question like how can we change the mindset of our brothers and sisters in African countries? That is a big question. Another comment here, something it's here. It is here how we can change the mindset of African people. But if the mindset, cause Maria, Jibjaba yagamba like how many generations do we need like to okutereeza mindset y'abantu? Anyways, we see colonization. There are very many countries that colonize Africa. We have British, the so-called British Empire. We have the Belgium. We have the French Empire. We have the Sweden and the United States. All these people, like they had a touch in colonization of Africa. And by the way, on 16th of March 1957, Ghana, which was of course so-called the Gold Coast, became the first sub-Saharan African country to gain the independence from European colonization. Starting with the 1945 Pan-African Congress, the Gold Coast's independence leader Kwame Nkrumah made his focus clear. In the conference's declaration, he wrote like this. Wow, We believe in the rights of all peoples to govern themselves. We affirm the right of all colonial peoples to control their own destiny. All colonies must be free from foreign imperialists' control, whether political or economic. Take it. That was Kwame Nkrumah towards the fight of independence, because Ghana nayo sort of kufuna independence across Africa in 1957. So this guy was akubona yali mu puppet. Oh, Baba, oh, Bidaru. So, in 1948, three Ghanaian veterans were killed by the colonial police on protest march. Riots broke out in Africa, and though Nkrumah and other Ghanaian leaders were temporarily imprisoned, hmm, the event became the catalyst for the independence movement. It was after the march, after being released from the prison, Nkrumah founded the Convention People's Party (CPP), which launched a wide-scale campaign in support of independence with the slogan "Self-government now." Watch change. Heightened nationalism within the country grew their power, and the political party widely expanded. In February 1951, the CPP gained political power by winning 34 of 38 elected seats, including one of Nkrumah's, who was imprisoned at the time. The British government revised the Gold Coast Constitution to give Ghanaians a majority in the legislature in 1951, and in 1957 Ghana requested independence inside the Commonwealth, which was granted peacefully in 1957 with Nkrumah the Prime Minister and Queen Elizabeth II as the sovereign. Hold it up. That was Queen Elizabeth necessary to be as the sovereign. Yet they have granted the independence. That's what I was telling you, that we have, like, we celebrate about independence, but we don't look at like what are people here like on top of our independencies. Kitegeera, there is no way you can tell me that Ghana got independence peacefully in 1957 with Nkrumah as the prime minister and Queen Elizabeth II as the sovereign. It means the country is still under colonization. Okitegeera, ate even up to now, because we still celebrate our independence in Ghana. Okitegeera, we still celebrate independence in Ghana every year. But was this thing the Queen or the kingdom? Is it the kingdom of UK? Yeah. Still, is it out of Ghana's political system as the sovereign? Is it out? Olwekirabika nga bakiwandiise babe. So this thing, I think Nkrumah kubanga he must have signed some documents with these people so that they put the other guy at the top still, or that country to still be at the top. So it doesn't make any sense. And very many people don't look at this. What was the way? Why is it that we celebrated the independence, even in Uganda here in 1962, we celebrated independence. But even on an Independence Day, the national anthem was sung in English. Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense. The one thing those guys should have done, the people who fought for independence, was to scrap our good discussion. Let our family enjoy your evening. Good discussion. Tijaba is out. Oh yes, Tijaba. Thank you for being here. with us for all that time. Yeah, the guy
Yeah,
has
for he has been since I left him.
since
Thank you,
Jiba, thank you so much for those great comments and being with us, for giving
Bambi.
us a cool and calm environment.
Bro is always here.
Yeah, thank
Jeba,
you.
the
I
problem
actually
you are very
shared
far from
if
Uganda. But thank you for always
we
being
would
here.
get him
I went to
grasshoppers.
the hospital, came back, you're still here.
Mhm. We would even, if he was near Uganda, we would get him grasshoppers in the season.
Shout out to Jaba.
But anyway, Jim Jabba, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us.
Jaba does not eat fucking grasshoppers. It does not eat those animals, those insects.
So thank you so much, Jiba.
You'll
Thank
get him something
you.
else.
Thank you
They should
so
get him
much.
something else.
Yeah.
In his email, be surprised. From INNOSSETU Anna Maria by the Egypt Jabba. Yeah, I think we can even sense some something from
Mhm.
Uganda,
Did
and you
you
can receive it from there through
uh,
the the post office.
did you hear about the story of the other celebrity who, like, he was going out of the country and a
Koze
friend
dibyanze kubazima.
against
Mhm.
like there is a celebrity, a Ghanaian celebrity,
Mhm.
like he was going out of the country and he had a
Mhm.
friend. The friend was like, I have a girlfriend in UK. I want you to of course it was a season of grasshoppers.
Mhm.
So the girlfriend was like, you, somebody is coming this side. You send me some grasshoppers because I've taken some time. We don't get grasshoppers this side, so
Mhm.
I need to eat grasshoppers. So you know what the guy did? They got grasshoppers, of course. They were like fried them very well. They were so sweet with a
Mhm.
nice scent. So
Really?
so when this guy was in a plane, he ate all the grasshoppers. One
Mm.
gurune.
Go ahead.
Eh,
Yazidi.
Yazidi. The guy ate the grasshoppers in the plane. Akotokeri kali kawoza ki nga tezikyalabika. So the wind of change in Africa about African decolonization and African countries getting independence. It was within that time Ghana becomes a spearheading in a first country in Africa to get independence, and all other African countries follow up this country during that time. I was telling you that it was not making any sense for
Mm.
Nkrumah to
Mm.
become a prime minister of Ghana in 1957, and still Queen Elizabeth became the sovereign.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that influence, that attachment, that clearly showed that Ghana was not independent, and even other countries that were under the British Empire or protectorate or whatever. Which take it,
Mm.
because if you look at all these countries, this one got independence freely,
Mm.
Uganda freely.
Mm.
These people still kept that existence, that influence in those countries because you know very well that during that time after getting independence, the prime minister had more powers than the president,
Mm.
even in Uganda.
Mm.
You know very well who was the sovereign.
Mm.
Which take
Mm.
it, the queen,
Yeah. Mm.
the
And
queen.
someone who was representing the queen was the prime minister.
Which take it
Mm.
was the prime minister. They just changed maybe about the constitution and the word, but it wouldn't make any sense. I was talking about almost all African countries when they were dropping down those flags of the colonial masters.
Mm.
We see that on the same day, and they used to drop them down late in the night. I mean, late in midnight.
Mm.
During that time, they sang national anthems for those respective countries in Africa.
Mm.
But in those like in Uganda, they sang the national anthem in English. So it showed that we are not independent, but
Mm.
we failed to wake up by that time to see that we are not independent.
That's true. We can only claim that we are independent if we are restored.
Mm,
If if we are restored, or in that position we were in before our colonizers.
mm,
You know, African people were self-sufficient, depending on themselves in every will, and they were turned to be dependent. Of course, the African countries are independent, people say,
mm.
but the opposite of the word independence is dependent. It is either you are independent or
Or dependent,
dependent.
right? Yeah.
It's very clear that to be independent country, you need to be able to take care of yourself. If you can't take care of all your affairs and you need foreigners to survive, then you are a dependent. To be independent means you depend on yourself for all your survival. You have enough capacity to provide for yourself. If you depend from outsiders, then you are a dependent, not independent. Children are normally called the dependents because they do not rely within themselves to survive. If you cannot produce your own means of survival by depending on foreign help or donors, then you are a dependent.
Mm,
Okay, when you are employed by someone and you are getting salary every month,
mm,
that does not mean you are independent, because you are also under someone's favor.
mm,
If Africans depend on employment, especially by colonial powers, then we must ask ourselves whether we are independent or dependent.
mm,
Employment has never made everyone independent. If you are an employee, then you are a dependent. You are not in the driving seat of your life. Our African leaders are actually, dependent. They depend on the colonial masters. That's why they are puppets. And if your leaders are depending on the colonial masters, that means the entire African, you know, continent is depending on those very, you know, masters. Every creature was created independent, not to depend on other. Find a lion looking for an for the fellow. You are looking for employment. That means you have fallen dependent. Our forefathers were not employees. They were planting, having livestock, building their own houses, and have enough food for their families. It was the European who came with this evil system of employment, which still is also slavery nowadays. We are still get from the first. You have your leaders working for the Americans. They decide we are working for United Nations. If we don't agree with what they are doing, definitely we are not getting aid. We are ready to get stuff from the British people. Sorry, the Chinese. Now the Chinese are coming in. That's why China also wants to control or colonize Africa, because actually it is doing it. Because now apparently most of the African countries are depending on China.
mm,
So that means China is also controlling Africa. You see, we are never, unless we go back to the old ways, unless we drive back, we go back to the way we were before these people came into Africa. We were organized, we had our politics was well defined, we had a very good leadership, we had control over our own resources, our own minerals, and everything we controlled. Everything was for us. We were Africans who believed in ourselves. We loved ourselves. That's why they knew we were standing strong. It was very hard for them to control us unless they divide us. And this division is still working. We even don't know when it's gonna end. But we have been controlled. Of course, they decided to divide us by demarcating Africa, giving us that geographical division. or you identify yourself as a Ugandan, the other does as a Tanzanian, another does as a Rwandese, another ones identify themselves as Ghanaians, Nigerians, South Africans, whatever. That is the number one division. Two, the tribes you speak. You feel like you belong to a particular tribe than the other. To the point that even in relationship, even in family, someone will say, probably I would wish to marry from the other tribe. They think that is the best tribe, not even their own. Someone will start giving pictures, someone will start imagining, if I have a baby and probably the dad is of this tribe, I will have achieved great. You don't look at the fact that you don't look at the kind of woman you want to have or the kind of man you would wish to have. Probably, maybe even the kind of person you are looking for is just close behind your house in a village. But because you are looking at another tribe being superior than your own, you are identifying the other tribe being superior than your own. And this has happened throughout, as we look at Africans, identifying the whites, Muzungu being superior than them. We have also Africans who identify other tribes as superior to them. Because why should you wake up and tribe should be the one reason why you want to marry in certain places? Why should that be the reason? Why don't you look at the most important things like, is this person good? Is this person going to be able to raise whatever or be responsible or probably have good genes for my child or stuff like that? People don't look at this because if you look even I'm not gonna use Uganda because I've used Uganda a lot. Now I'm gonna use our neighbors, Kenya. Kenya had a ruling party. They had a ruling tribe that was in power for some time. You will find that everybody feels like if you marry a man from that tribe or Jolanka, even in Kenya, the same thing, you see, that you have achieved greatly. They will tell you they are the most privileged people. So I don't know whether it is a human way to try and defend themselves, or probably I don't know. But me, I feel like this is a way of you looking down on yourself. Um, I was not raised where my father was. And the same story goes to my dad. But I take a lot of trades. Even I associate myself with those people because I believe, because they raised me. I speak their language. I was raised among those people and everything about them. You see, so a lot of people still have that inferiority complex or complexion in their mind. Or to go and walk with your lava. Complexion in their mind. So, so this whole issue and division has built a very huge negative impact that people still follow that. People still believe in it, and we are spreading more of hate than love within ourselves. Than ourselves, So let's take it. I will get that.
So that like we are like in Africa. Besides the confusion these people brought in Africa, besides the resources these people have done in Africa, they have extracted from African lands. Besides the crimes, the very many crimes they have done in African countries, Africans, we have failed to learn from these people. We have failed to learn from the mistakes these people have done in our lands.
Mm,
Starting from the presidents, starting from the political leaders,
Mm.
going down to people at personal level, individual level. Hmm?
Mm.
We are not learning. We once had a discussion here about a white woman who killed over 105 kids
Mm.
in Uganda here,
Mm.
but still, we have not even learned from that recent incident.
No, people don't know about that incident. They usually, there is power,
Mm,
you know, they usually hide such kind of things.
mm,
You may find even the majority, people were just learning about this to the point that some people were like, how did this even happen that we didn't even see the mainstream? We didn't see our national televisions broadcasting this. They always hide the truth. Check it out.
mm,
Because they know the impact. Now, in a place like Uganda, like in rural areas where people are very timid,
mm,
if they see such kind of things
mm,
on the news that a Mzungu has done this, trust me, no one is going to allow a Mzungu touch their child.
mm,
And they know the impact.
mm,
Also again,
mm,
you know what villages are.
mm,
You're not going to touch anyone's child if you're a Mzungu.
mm,
So they made sure that they kept this information away from the people. Most of the Ugandan people don't know this information. Until of recent that some of them were coming across these videos on TikTok. And everyone was like, why did we see that on TV? Why didn't we hear about this on radio? Because our mainstream is being controlled. Even the televisions have been controlled. So yeah.
So, but still, besides even the controlling of the media, the televisions, radios, still we have not wakened up.
Mm-hmm.
Kitege,
It's
we have
changing.
we have even if you wake up and awaken some people, they will still not wake
Kama
up.
wala ukaniza mbesamu wakifanya nini asabiri asubiri. Kage na kugira na fipaka.
Nze nga ayogedde nange.
Ayogedde nawe kirungi. Kyogamba akwagala nnyo kati.
Siizo,
Kano
siizo. Siizo naye newanjinga tegajja bimwawo.
akyekeza anyigidde ku nze. I know him. I know that dude. Gosh. Yanyigidde zitova we nazo uzanyiza ne amanyi bulungi kunenga nina ekyekyo. Olaba mamange naye antya kati oli.
Mama akutya ate?
Mama anti amanyi nnyumba. Naye tebangamba ebyo akinyamba. Era ne mama ng'atuuka n'andeeka.
Kati obuzibu bugenda obuva. Kasita sikyajja. Twali ku
Nze
kutepe.
bayini kati no kankuwulire nina ekyekyo olaba nga kanyonga. Ate no zekyekyo kyekyampa ebitutto. Neno ndi muntu oli emotional ate nga njagala okwefaako. Kale nfa ne ku balala sigamba munno I'm selfish.
We saw a wind of change in Africa. Uh, yeah.
Tobigezaako ebyo byonna bifu.
Nze nja bikyusa. Obadde ki? Olokoteti muzamufuga. 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 Jigale tugende.
Sina byenjigala mbagambe nzaavugaddewo.
Jigale sizo ziwedde.
Kale kala
Binako ziwedde.
tujja kudda.
Naye ng'onadda.
Nze ngenda kudda.
Yakubalula.
Nze ngenda kudda.
Nawonye magulu kyekirwala. Olowooza ki? Nenda oba wetereze.
Nagenda ndowooza just bw'onyeenya bw'onyeenya amagulu obwongo bwange nga bukonsentratinga ku magulu.
Anyway, guys, for those that have been here since the first hour, thank you so much for watching this show. Thank you for sharing with us about the decolonization for Africa. Thank you for letting us know for what we didn't know. Um, like the way we develop this topic, like because decolonization is still in existence, by the way. And people don't know about this. Say if you talk about decolonization, people are like, will be like, INNOSSETU, are you okay? Decolonization, people are crazy. But anyway, thank you so much for watching and supporting Black Fire Network. For those that have been watching us from Facebook, Black Fire radio station, thank you so much. Always keep watching us on Facebook, and don't forget always to give a like, to share these videos because they're so important. Don't forget to follow our page on Facebook, Black Fire Network Radio. Thank you so much for watching. For those that have been watching from Twitter, and that is Black Fire Net One, and of course a YouTube channel that is Black Fire Network. Thank you so much for today. Thank you. Are you coming on?
Hello?
Hmm? Are you coming on? Are you coming? Okay. Okay, let us get some kachai, some coffee, and we get back in another segment in another style. I think. Thank you so much. It has been me, INNOSSETU, Kampala, Uganda, with my colleague, Africa, Maria.